At FIE, we're not just
students
and faculty.
We're not only learners
and lecturers.
We are expanding minds,
expanding futures.
We're redefining the classroom.
We are life-changing.
Eye-opening. We are a community
driven by our values
that wants you.
You.
Yes, you.
To join.
Hello, and welcome to In the Field, a podcast from FIE, where we will be exploring all things study abroad. I'm Dr. Heidi James Dunbar, writer in residence and senior faculty, and I will be your host. Joining me today is Olin Mosley. He is an RLS staff member based in the Dublin office. He's originally from Jacksonville, Florida in the States, and went to Elon University in North Carolina, where he earned bachelor's degrees in political science and public policy. Olin was a study abroad student with FIE in Dublin for the fall 2022 semester, where he studied politics at the Dublin Business School. After graduating from Elon, he joined the RLS team in Dublin and enrolled in the International Politics Master's Programme at Trinity, where he focused on international law and Northern Ireland, Colombia and Kosovo. Having completed his Master's, he's now studying for his FE1 law entrance exam and hopes to become a solicitor in Ireland. Olin has spent a great amount of time travelling in Ireland and frequently leads the student tours to Northern Ireland, where students get hands-on experience with the politics and culture of the area. He's an avid fan of all things Irish, from the language to music, sports and history. Olin, welcome.
How are you doing, Heidi?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's a gorgeous day out here in Dublin. Sunny skies, not a cloud in the sky. For our American listeners, it's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which I want to say is, 20 degrees Celsius? Something like that. But it's just a gorgeous day. It's one of the only days in Dublin where you can walk around in shorts and a short sleeve shirt, which is a rarity. So it's just a gorgeous day. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about Dublin. All things Dublin, I just absolutely adore.
Now, you are just the man to tell me 10 fantastic things to do in Dublin for under a tenner. Let's go.
Yeah, I like to think so. I've lived in Dublin for a little over a year and a half in between my studies and working with FIE. So I intimately know the feeling of budgeting as a student and then having a little bit of money myself. So I'll start with the first thing, which is St. Stephen's Green. It's in city centre Dublin, right off Grafton Street, which is the main shopping centre in Dublin. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's, ponds, there's waterfalls, it's great gazebos and all these statues and stuff, and it's great to just go over there, read some books, have a little picnic, hang out with some friends. I'm always there, and I'll include this with number one as well, just in terms of parks. Phoenix Park is also a really great place. These are both free entry, so no worries about pulling out the wallet there. But Phoenix Park is very historic. There's a lot going on in terms of Irish history, in terms of all the way from independence to modern day. There's the Irish version of the White House, Áras an Uachtaráin, there. It's the spitting image of the White House. So you'd think you're on Pennsylvania Avenue when you look at it. It's absolutely massive as well. I want to say it's at least twice the size of Central Park. So gorgeous lanes. Yeah, it's massive, I'd say. I usually go out there on a run or a bike ride or something like that, and I'm almost certain that I've only trekked about a quarter of it. There's a zoo on the property, so it's really great fun. I want to say the zoo is about 30 euros, so I'll exclude that from the 10 list of under 10, but just for if you're keen on going, lots of deer around, and in the winter you'll see a little bit of reindeer. They're quite adamant that you don't feed them or touch them, but they're a gorgeous sight. You'll just see a bunch of does and deers flocking around the place. So yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then My second one, I'll say, is Dublin Castle. So when you think of a castle, you think of kind of like the Motte and Bailey with a moat and all these things, and you think of these just massive towers and that. Dublin Castle is a bit of a misnomer. It is more of an old government complex, an old kind of palace. It was where the viceroyalty and attorney generals or generals of Dublin would stay, and it was the administrative center for about 800 years in Irish history. It's gorgeous. They do official receptions. Some people have weddings there. Absolutely incredible little court there. And it's about €6 to get entry in. And I believe if you show your student card, it's going to be around a fiver. So it's absolutely worth the trek. Lots of art there. Some gorgeous installations there. So highly recommend it. It's in the middle of Dublin city center. It's hard to miss. And if you're here in the fall and winter, they do markets. So, go over there, especially during Christmas. It's just so much fun. You get some food, you get some mulled wine, hot chocolate, something like that to keep you warm. Because a Dublin winter can be quite frigid. So it's just a lot of fun to go to. And the grounds themselves are free entry. So if you just want to go and have a chat, sit at the gorgeous gardens they have there, that'll be free to you. But if you want to go inside, like I said, that'll be about €6. And then in terms of student deals for food, I'm sure they'll be wanting this. If they're at Trinity, there's a place called Carluccio's off Dawson Street, right down the road. And you get a full box of pasta. I'm talking like quite a large takeaway box of pasta for about $5.50. And it's an incredible deal. If you want a drink, I want to say that comes around to $6.50. A little, Coke Zero or something like that. But it's great. They'll usually have it Monday to Friday from about 12 to half 2. So if you're in town and you want to just grab a small bite to eat, you'll get it for about £5.50. And then I'll move to my fourth selection for 10 things under 10. And I'll start with the National Gallery. So that is just, apart from all the art there, which is fabulous, it's just a gorgeous building. You can walk around there and not look at a painting and still feel like you're having a great time. They do free tours as well if you book in advance. So just absolutely lovely. Lots of history there, some old paintings from famous Irish painters, painters from the continent, from Spain, Italy, France, and all that. And I'll do a museum section here, if that's all right with
Yes,
you.
please do.
Yeah, right. So the National History Museum, the Natural History Museum, and the Archaeological Museum are all kind of in the same sort of complex. And they're right next to the Irish Parliament, the Dáil. So I think you have to pay to get in there. So that'll be a separate kind of thing. But the Archaeological Museum is just absolutely incredible. There's stuff from, 3000 BC, like stone cutting tools, old passage tombs. If you're a fan of all those old Celtic carvings and crosses and things like that, the swirly patterns and that, you'll see so much of that. And it's very, very well preserved because the bogs in Ireland, they get rid of all the oxygen. They're not oxygenated. So everything that's been in there looks like it was made yesterday. And it's just a really great way to preserve history. They've got the Viking stuff from Dublin. Dublin was founded in, I want to say, 988. So it's a very old city settled by the Vikings. So you'll see a lot of Viking artifacts there as well. And then the third museum, I want to say that's free, is the Chester Beatty Gallery. So this is a fellow Chester Beatty. He was just a very rich guy who liked to collect a lot of fine things. So you'll see a lot of Arabic things. There's like a very old like calligraphy of the Quran, and it's just an absolutely beautiful piece of text. So they have it separated between Africa, Asia, Middle East, and at the moment they have a Bible exhibition where you'll see texts being written in Greek that were from 500 AD. Some of the first copies of the Bible are just sitting there, and it's just absolutely it's just an absolutely incredible time. It can be quite profound if you see something like that. And it's not something a lot of people would see. It's on the Dublin Castle grounds. So if you're in there and you don't really want to go into the castle to see a lot of Irish art and all that stuff, you can just pop over to the Chester Beatty. It's free. There's no check-in, there's no tickets or nothing. And then I'll go to number 5, which is the Christ Church Cathedral, which is in dead city center Dublin. If you're looking at pictures of the Dublin skyline or just pictures of Dublin, Christ Church Cathedral is one of the big things you'll see that'll always come up. It's a sprawling cathedral complex in one of the first churches established by the Vikings. So it's very, very old. I want to say 12th century. And it's just a lot of ornate Gothic kind of style architecture. It was renovated in the 17th century, and that'll cost you about $5.50 if you show your student card there. St. Auden's Cathedral is right next door, and it's free entry. It's around the same era, so we'll say 12th century, and it has not really been touched. It's more or less been added to. So I think a cool thing about that is that you can walk into the front and it's 12th century kind of monastic sort of vibes, and then you go to the next room and you'll see something from 14th century and so on and so forth up until like the modern day. And it's just absolutely breathtaking to see kind of like the architectural history of churches in Europe, especially. So number 6, I'll say a stroll through Trinity is free. Trinity is the premier college in Ireland. It was founded in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I. So it's from around that period, and it's absolutely beautiful. And a lot like St. Auden's, a lot has just been added. So there's a lot of original stuff. If you go to a building called the Atrium, which you could just get in for free because it's for students and that, you'll see some of the oldest pieces of architecture in Trinity, old wooden beams from the 16th century and stuff like that. So you can really feel like you're walking through history, I would say, when you're walking through Trinity. A lot of famous people have gone through there: Oscar Wilde, Jonathan Swift, presidents of Ireland. So you really feel like the magnitude of, all the history bearing down on you when you walk through those gorgeous gates and see the Campanile. As a student myself at Trinity, it always just, I never get over how beautiful the campus is, and if you're lucky to study enough at Trinity as well on your study abroad programs, I would say, take full advantage of all the facilities you have that are access to students only. Right across the road from that, I'll say number 7 is a big, massive building. It looks like an old Parliament building, and that's because it used to be. It was the House of Commons for Ireland before the Act of Union in 1800. So it's just this massive kind of regal kind of building, lots of crests and stuff like that. And if you walk in there, you might be a bit surprised to see all the bank tellers because it is a branch of the Bank of Ireland. So it's free entry, of course. You can walk around there. And in the back there, they have an exhibit for Seamus Heaney, who was the Nobel Poet Laureate of and a famous Irishman in and of itself. So it's great fun to just go around there and just see what's going on. You're very likely to see something you hadn't seen before in Ireland if you go somewhere like that in Dublin. So I'll go to number 8. You want to grab a cup of tea and a scone at Bewley's. Bewley's is a very historic kind of tea cafe right off Grafton Street. It's very Georgian in architecture. I want to say it's from the mid to late 19th century. So the tea there is gorgeous. Scones there, get yourself a little bit of butter and jam and just sit there and take it all in. Just all the jazz music, all the people from all over the world will come over and just have a quick bite to eat. And they'll do tea in the middle of the day. And it's absolutely so much fun to just go with your friends and just, if it feels really nice as an American to just go and have, afternoon tea. That's not really something we'll be doing. So it makes you feel like you're really a part of the culture here. So over that, I'd say number 9, you can grab, if you're a student, you can show your student card at the Lighthouse Cinema and you get a ticket for €5 and any size popcorn you want for €4. So €9, just under €10. So
Perfect.
It made the cut. Yeah, made the cut. And the cool thing about the Lighthouse Cinema, is that they really specialize in showing older movies. So at any given time, you can go and see a movie from, the 60s, 70s, all throughout to modern day, and from any continent you want. Right now, they have a really good Brazilian movie showing. So if you're really into film and you really want to just go to a really cool cinema, cheap cinema as well, those are rare. You can go over there, and it's right close. It's in the Smithfield neighborhood, so it's very close to where FIE's headquarters are in Dublin and where students would be staying. I'll usually go there on a Friday or Saturday just for a matinee or something like that. So highly recommend that. And then for number 10, I've tried to stave this off as long as possible. But as James Joyce says, it's impossible to go tip to toe in Dublin without passing a couple pubs. So the thing about pubs in Dublin, I would avoid Temple Bar. It's a bit pricey, and the prices go up as the day goes on. So you're usually not really going to find a lot of locals there. Great for, a night out if you can afford it, but I have 5 pubs here, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
These are great. Right, yeah. So there's the Old Triangle, which is near a very historic train station, Connolly Station. And the Old Triangle is named after a famous Dublin song of the same name, which talks about the Royal Canal and all that stuff. So you should listen to that song before you get in there. It's a really old school, when you think traditional Irish pub, you're thinking of the Old Triangle, not Temple Bar. And you go there, you can get a Guinness or whatever, which one you want, for a $5 there, which is quite rare. I'd rather have a $5 than a $9.50 pint there. You have JT Pems, which is great for students. It's in the middle of city center. Itself is a very old pub. And you can really feel how old it is. You feel like you've walked into the 19th century when you walk into some of these places. And if you've had your fill of old Dublin pubs and you kind of want to try something that might feel more at home, you can slide over to Jackie's, which is right next to FI's campus over here. And the thing about it is it's a 90s kind of theme bar. So the toilets have Ross and Rachel instead of Men and Women's, and they're always playing MTV on the tellies, and all the staff are wearing 90s outfits, windbreakers and colorful pants and all that. The Padraig Pearse is the 4th one I'll bring up. It is named after an old Irish revolutionary, and it's the local watering hole for a lot of local city center dubs. So if you go in there, you'll see a lot of old fellas, as they call them over here, and they'll just regale you with all these stories about Dublin, because Dublin's had quite a transformation over the past 30 to 40 years. It was it was as it was in 1970 as it was in 1920. So nowadays it feels like a lot more modern European city. And if you want to just go hear some stories of the old days, just saddle up on the bar and talk to some of the old fellas there. And people in Ireland are so friendly. They hear an American or a British accent, they'll just want to chat to you about yourself, and they'll chat about themselves. So going over there is just like walking through history and talking to your granddad or something if he was from Dublin. And then the last one I'd say is Gravediggers. Gravediggers is, if you look up best Dublin pub, according to Dubliners, they'll say Gravediggers, John Kavanagh. It's called Gravediggers because it's next to the big cemetery in Ireland where all the, Michael Collins and all the Irish revolutionaries are buried. And that's where the Gravediggers would go after their shifts, just to, grab a cheeky drink or something like that. It's been untouched more or less since the 19th century. So I'd say more so than any of the other pubs I've mentioned. It's all wood inside. There's no stained glass windows. It almost feels like you've walked into a speakeasy from the 20s or something like that. It's a really great time. One of the cheaper Guinnesses as well. It's $5.50. All the previous places I've listed do Guinness as well for €5. So this is considered expensive for this list. But sure, yeah, it's a bit far away from city center. It's in a neighborhood called Glasnevin. So a lot of people will go there before a football match or a Gaelic hurling match, stuff like that. So again, you'll see a lot of North Side Dubliners who themselves are just absolutely lovely people, really want to chat with you. Um, and so yeah, that is a lot over 10 for under 10. But I will say I've just kind of, I just absolutely adore Dublin, and there's so many places for people to go and see. Um, these are kind of off the beaten path, but they're, just as worthy as any of the other places you might be going if you look up on, you know, Visit Ireland sites or something like that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I love that. And I think the key about Dublin and Ireland, similar to the rest of the United Kingdom, is that when you go in a pub, you don't have to have a drink. Like you can have they'll have coffee, they'll have tea, they'll have soft drinks. It's not like a bar. Like, so it's a big part of the culture that, you go there and it's about socializing and chatting and listening to music. And so don't feel that you have to go and have a drink. Although I would say, if the Guinness is amazing in Dublin, but there is
try it,
but there is also Guinness Zero. So if you don't want to drink alcohol, the Guinness Zero, I tried that at the weekend, is gorgeous. It really does taste amazing.
Oh, yeah, and it tastes like the real thing. If you're on a dry January or something like that, as myself was, there is, Guinness Zero, Heineken Zero, all these things. And if you don't, even if you don't want to have a pint at your hand or something like that, there's a lot of people in Dublin that just don't drink and stuff like that. A lot of my friends are, sober, and so they'll just go and they'll grab a coffee and a tea. And some people will have pints, others will have coffee and tea. It's not about going to drink. It is a public house, so people from the neighborhoods and stuff like that, pop down to their local and just see their friends, family get-togethers, have a meal, a bit of shepherd's pie, a bit of fish and chips, whatever they'll be wanting. And it's just like a community center.
Yeah, exactly that. But I love your list because there's so much. There's museums, art, history, picnicking, food. So it's perfect. You are clearly the man for this job, and you've been really successful in both your studies, and you've managed to have fun and really, really kind of make the most of your study abroad experience. So I'm wondering if you can give us can you give us some advice on how you made the most of your study abroad experience, and what you kind of, how you achieved that balance of making connections, making friends, seeing the city, but doing well in your studies?
Yeah, so I think a very important part of my life that I've always kind of emphasized is finding balance. I think you should have these experiences when you're younger to kind of, get a couple scrapes and bruises, for lack of a better term, go out, have some fun, but also don't put your studies to the side, because as we were speaking earlier, you can shift one way or the other. Too much partying, not enough studying, too much studying, not enough, letting yourself be yourself, and just, experience and delve into your passions and things like that. So, I've always made sure to have one hobby going, whether that is just playing music or, walks, going on a walk or something like that. And maintaining a good social life, I think, for your mental health is, just as good as anything for your studies. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're just locked in your room, seeing everybody else going out and not joining in the fun yourself. Life is about living, and it's also about learning. So kind of putting those two things in balance in the long run, I think you'll find yourself to be much happier and just as successful as you'd be if you were just locked in your own room. Just if there's a deadline coming up, you got to tell yourself it will get done, because you have to have a lot of faith in yourself, and just be resilient in terms of studies. Everybody makes slips up in the way, and I certainly have as well. But everything has worked out for me so far. I think it's going well. I'm very proud and very happy to have had a family that has been extremely supportive throughout my journey. And, I just think it's just extremely important that you enjoy yourself while you're young. If you go to those pubs and talk to the old fellas, they'll say, "I wish I was your age. Youth is wasted on the young." And so you just gotta go out and experience the world, because it can also help you with your learning as well. Learned experience is still learning. And so, yeah, as much as I have a passion for history, politics, art, law, I equally have enough passion as going out, meeting people, making friends. And Dublin is the perfect place to do that. I mean, Irish hospitality is second only to Southern hospitality, I would say. It is truly absolutely lovely. I remember I went and picked up my friend from the train station, and the next day, their mother came over to me with cookies and stuff like that. So it's just, it's such a lovely culture. No matter where you're from, Irish people are so inviting and so lovely. And sure, whichever country you're from, I'm sure they'll have cousins or family that are living over there. You'll always, if you're an American, I'll always be like, yeah, I'm from Florida originally. And they're like, oh, I know Jacksonville, Florida. My cousin lives over there. He's originally from Kildare. And so you can just have a chat and talk to people about these things. And as I'm sure you can tell from me yapping on and on, we love talking. And I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, my American roots. And so, just putting yourself in perspective and history and the context which you come from, it's a great way to build character. It's a great way to build your identity, rather than defining yourself by your studies or, your ability to go out and, have fun.
Like everything in life, all in balance.
All in balance. Balance is the key.
Yeah.
If you have one word in your head at all times, it should be balance.
Absolutely. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, key to success.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's your city secret?
My city secret. So as I'm sure you've heard through the list, I have many, many city secrets that are just off the beaten path. And it is just this big building in the middle of city center. So not really a secret, but not a lot of people would think to go to it. I had a family friend there visit last week, and he was in a hotel right next to this place, and he had no clue what it was. And that is the GPO, the Grand Post Office. So if you go into the building, it looks just like it's a really beautiful building, and it's just this post office. And it is like the main post office in Dublin. But there's a museum in it. The GPO is situated in one of the most important places in Dublin's history, all the way from the establishment of Dublin in the 10th century, all the way to the War of Independence and the Celtic Tiger and all that. It famously is the place where the Irish Revolution kicked off. So it's like the Declaration of Independence, the Alamo, and Lexington and Concord all in one. And you go in there and you learn so much about Irish history from its beginning to its current day. And I want to say it's a little bit under a tenner if you're a student. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's a bit under a tenner to go and visit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just kind of want to walk around the beautiful building itself, you can just go in for free. Sure, it's a post office. And yeah, so I would say that is a city secret. It looks like this big government building, but there's so much more to it. And the people who work there are absolutely lovely. A lot of them are students themselves from the area. So even if you're not keen on the history aspect and stuff like that, just going and chatting to some locals that are your age and just see what the story is. And they'll just they'll give you recommendations as well. And sure, I have a couple friends who work there at the moment, so I met them there. So yeah.
Brilliant.
I'd say that's a secret. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your secret and the top 10 things to do for under a tenner in Dublin. It's been lovely chatting with you, Olin. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Heidi. I can rabbit on this for ages, but yeah, I mean, putting 10 things together, I think it speaks to how great Dublin is and how wonderful it is for students, young adults, even middle-aged people and all that. Like, it's just such a great town to just walk around. I mean, the most famous book from the city is about a guy who walks around town for a day and stumbles into all these wonderful characters and these wonderful people. So yeah, no, thank you for having me.
I will, of course, include links to everywhere that Olin mentioned in the podcast notes. But thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed our podcast and that Olin's top tips have been useful to you, FIE provides life-changing study abroad experiences in the UK, Ireland and Spain. As a non-profit educational organisation, we are passionately invested in making a difference for our students as the future global leaders of tomorrow and the field of international education as a whole. The FIE podcast is a creative and academic space for exploring everything, people, places and opportunities that make your experience so valuable and exciting.
FIE. We're here to help you
Unlock a wider
brighter future.